again this week. This weekend, starting off bright and early. We've got a jam-packed schedule for us today. Lots of information to share, and what we're going to do is we'll start off with a musical four-way test to get us in the mood. I'm going to ask Bruce to make a little update on Alan Bash and how he's doing. And then I'm going to turn it back to Jeff for rules of engagement and move into our breakout rooms. So we tested this before, so hopefully this will work better this time than it did last time. And let's see. Well, here we are. Here we go.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build good? Will it better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? When we pay it forward, it will be returned. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build good? Will it better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? When we pay it forward, it will be returned. When we pay it forward, it will be returned.
All right. Hope you all enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So, Bruce, I'll turn it back to you so you can bring us up to speed on how Alan Bash is doing.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Bob. By the way, there is another version of the four-way test to music done by King and Trio a long time ago. And
There's several of them, yeah. I tried one last time. It didn't work out so well.
Picture there.
so anyway, Alan Bash, who is, hopefully he will remain an AG from the central area. He's from the Sandia Club. He came down with a stroke about a week ago. And he is in rehabilitation right now in Albuquerque, doing well. I talked to him yesterday. He's in good spirits. He hopes to be released by the end of next week, but so far he still hasn't regained use of the right-hand side of his body. Fortunately, it has not affected his speech, so he's as animated as ever when you talk to him. But it was a pretty serious one. However, it looks he's doing well, and he's hoping for a full recovery. So, if anybody, if you know Alan and you want to get in touch with him right now, I can't remember the name. Shoot, I'll try and get the information to Bob on how to get in touch with him, and he's in rehab. So,
Okay, thanks, Bruce.
okay,
Jeff, I'll turn it back to you for rules of engagement.
Okay, quick rules. So just like on the 13th, we will try as much as possible to have microphones open so we can have an interchange. If we hear feedback, we'll try to figure out where it's coming from. We'd rather do that than use the chat or raise hands. So open mics as much as possible. The session is being recorded, and I will send out the link later tonight or tomorrow, along with a survey, so you can let us know what worked well with the training and what did not. And I believe those are the Zoom rules for today, Bob.
Yeah, also the renaming yourself down here as well.
Oh, yes. So if you go in, if you know how to do it, you can click on your name and you can rename to add, let's say, what your role is, or if you're a new lieutenant governor or a new assistant governor, to kind of give Bob a sense, and maybe also what club you are from.
Yeah, if you would just put in, if you're a veteran in your position, put vet AGLG, or if you're a newbie, put new AGLG in there. So when people talk to you, they know where you're coming from.
Good.
Okay, Jeff.
So we're going to move into breakout rooms. We've got 3 rooms, and I'm going to have, for room 1, Dan Garrison will kind of lead the discussion. This is basically the homework assignment. Did you have a chance to reach out to your clubs? Have you talked to them about making sure that they've entered their incoming club information into Club Runner? if you've had a chance to look at the district foundation report. So it's really just to kind of see how that went, and maybe just open up a discussion about the homework assignment and your roles as assistant governors and lieutenant governors. So Dan will facilitate room number 1. Bruce will facilitate room number 2. And Jesse will facilitate room number 3. And we will reconvene at 9 o'clock. Here we go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, y'all.
Good morning.
Beautiful day in the land of enchantment.
At
Yes,
it.
it is. Okay. Bob, how did you do on your homework assignment?
I am, I have to say I was overcome by events and I didn't get much done this time. I'm one of
That's
those-
our leader.
Any problems looking at the district governor role and contacting with clubs, that kind of thing?
Dan, I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me. I'm just testing my microphone.
I
All
can
right,
hear you,
good.
Tom.
Good, good. You know, I have 3 clubs that I'm responsible for. Los Alamos is awesome and always does what they're supposed to do. Espanola is hard to even reach. Same with Centro. I've come, rather than trying to communicate directly with the leadership, I just communicate with everybody. And hopefully somebody responds, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So it's a little frustrating with those 2 clubs. It's nice to have Los Alamos there to make me feel like I'm actually doing something.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense, Tom, is this something that's kind of every year it's the same kind of issues, or is it, does it kind of change?
With Espanola, it is the same every year. It's kind of been our problem child for a long time. And because I live here in Espanola, I thought maybe I'd make an impact. And I've met with them a couple times. When I do meet with them, they're very enthusiastic and engaged, but then nothing happens after that. With Centro, I think a big part of it is meeting virtually hasn't really been something they've been very excited about. They've also had a really difficult time finding a president. And last I spoke to them, they didn't have one yet. I think the same people have been recycling so many times, they're sort of tired of it and don't want to do it anymore.
Any of the rest of you see some of the same things, or?
Oh yeah, I've got the Grants Milan Club. I know Bob had reached out to Jerry Pike. He's the president, and Jerry said he's probably going to have to stick around as president for another year because they really haven't been meeting. I think, and I only have numbers for a few of their members, which I've called, and both of them are longtime members, but they haven't been going to meetings. They haven't really had very many meetings. One of the big problems they did, one thing they changed was they were meeting at lunch, and Jerry changed it to an evening meeting. So, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times people join clubs for the convenience of time, and changing from a noon to an evening meeting, they may have lost some of their members. So not real sure. I don't know that they have a meeting scheduled here. I try to stay in touch with Jerry. Sometimes he responds and sometimes he doesn't, but just trying to salvage that one. And then, that Del Norte Club, they're a tough one, man.
Jeez.
You mentioned changing times. The PE has got designs on moving them to an evening club as well. So we'll see how that works out.
Every year, there are some clubs that are struggling. and some that are perennially struggling. Like for years, Fort Sumner was held together by one person. And when he died, that was it.
You
Club
know,
went.
struggling, maybe, there's different types of struggles in clubs. There's, meeting struggles, there's project involvement struggles, there's membership recruiting struggles. So, there's different clubs have different issues that they have to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had two clubs when I was AG that were both, the governors wanted to take their charters. Luckily, they got on the stick and got things turned around, but there are going to be difficulties. One of the things I found in these things is that I had to find the strength of the club. It may be a strength only compared to themselves, okay? But that was what I had to work with. Whatever I could identify as a strength there. And I learned that as, a family counselor working with people that you don't change people while working on their problems. You change them by working on their strengths. Okay, and the same kind of thing as an AG, and sometimes it's hard to find a strength. I know that, but that's still what we have to look at. I think. Any feedback on that? None. Okay.
But, again, as far as struggling goes, strengths and weaknesses, what do you see as the, can a small club be an effective club? Do they have to be a big club?
No.
No, they don't have to be. So just because they have a small number of members doesn't mean necessarily they're struggling, but it could indicate, I think in the long term, that they could get in trouble down the road as people move out. And if they're not recruiting and growing, we've always heard
And some, we've got a lot of clubs in smaller towns. And they have a limited pool.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of moving in and moving out.
I've got probably the smallest club in Albuquerque, and that's Metro, and they've only got like 9 members, but boy, they're active and everything they do, they schedule, they get it done, even during this COVID thing. The only problem I had with Metro is they're not using Zoom, they were using Google Meet, and I kept getting kicked off of that every time I try to meet with them. But I met with them 2 weeks before we got this assignment. I met with all my 3 clubs, and I gave them dates for pets, for AG, for everything that we had on the homepage, on the Rotary 5520 homepage. Gave them all those dates and also reminded them to make sure that all their officers or directors were entered, so our governor could knew who they would be working with, and also reminded them to make sure that their PEs attended pets. So, but the only problem, like I said, was them not using the Google Meet, and that was my Metro club. And one of the other ones, it took me a while to find my Rio Rancho Sunrise, because they switched from Tuesday mornings to Wednesday mornings. So that was the only problem I encountered.
Okay.
Is the Metro Club, are they actively trying to increase their membership, or are they happy where they
Oh,
are?
No, well, they've had like 105% improvement over what they had. They had like 4, now they're up to 9.
Well,
They
good.
might be hot. I haven't talked to them about membership,
Trend.
but they might have even more now.
That's good.
But they're very active, and all my clubs are very active. Sandia, and then the Rio Rancho Sunrise Club. They're all engaged. They're all doing civic things or community things besides their major fundraiser for their big projects.
Hey. In terms of the mandatory homework and things, how about the committing to diversity, equity, and inclusion? Have you talked to your clubs about that? No?
I don't.
Don't want to
Okay.
poke the bear.
Well, yeah, the thing is, I'm finding a lot of city limits Rotarians see that as an extension of our national political fights. And it's not. You know, Rotary is an international organization. You know, our biggest growth is in Asia. You know, the way we have to work is accepting other people and working with them. You know, we coming in are not going to change their culture. Us all working together for common ends might change all of our cultures. But, you know, it's a difficult, it's probably going to be a divisive kind of thing in some clubs. And I see no way to deal with that other than the internationality of Rotary.
We're going to be, you're going to be hearing more and more about this in our
Yeah.
training and on all levels.
Yeah.
But I really think it takes a lot of the rancor out if you think about it in terms of the opposites. If a club was not diverse and it wasn't inclusive, it would be uniform and exclusive. And how fun would that be? So, you know, and it's just in terms of reflecting your community. It's not actively, it's not affirmative action. We're not talking, and some people I think infer the old affirmative action is you got to go out
Exactly
and
where
recruit.
they say it.
Yeah, and it's not that at all. And that's part of our responsibility when we visit clubs is to pass that message that don't get this wrong. We want you to be, you know, thinking about reflecting your community and your diversity. And once people are in your club, be inclusive in allowing all members to be active members in your club, as opposed to some clubs may have a small group that is running the club, or they don't reach out to young members to take on leadership roles, things like that.
Do any of you have interact clubs in the clubs you see?
I do.
You do?
We have, Taos has an Interact Club. I'm not so sure about Angel Fire or Las Vegas. I don't think they do because of the whole COVID thing. It's just been too much of a struggle. But Taos's Interact Club is very active, and they are planning community projects even as we speak. And, you know, they're a great little club.
I'm running into the same thing. I can't, I almost have to use reins to slow down my interactors.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, and the Rotarians are saying, what should we do next? And the kids are just going great guns.
But I think getting back to the diversity question is, again, Taos is also trying to focus on bringing in individuals that better reflect the community. And that's sort of like their focus. So it's not necessarily affirmative action, but yet it is sort of a, we don't have anyone from this area. We need younger people. We need, representatives from certain areas of the community. And so that's what they're doing. But I think also that there's two cardinal rules that I've always tried to subscribe to with Rotary, and that is we don't discuss politics and we don't discuss religion, because it's too divisive, and that's not why we're there. So,
Right.
Yeah, another analogy I see is, we're sort of like the adults, and all of our clubs are like our kids. And we're inviting, whenever we get together, we get everybody together at a Thanksgiving Day meal. And two things you don't discuss.
exactly.
Is there's nothing to be gained by getting into those kinds of discussions. But somebody's bound to bring it up at some point in time. So you got to be able to
Getting
do
back to Interact Club, when I was teaching down at Santa Teresa, I they had made me an honorary member of the West Side El Paso Club. And then they called the school looking for an Interact sponsor. But since I was already working with them doing their parade, because I was the band director down there, their 4th of July parade, I let them know that I'd go ahead and start one. So I had a pretty active Interact Club. I had about 30, 35 kids. And
nice.
and I've been thinking, one of the easiest ways I think to get a Interact Club going in your areas is contact. I'm working on it right now. I'm contacting the DECA teachers at Rio Rancho and at Cleveland, because they've already got a captive audience. So we're going to go visit and we're going to talk to them, and basically about vocations. But at the same time, I'm going to see if we can get a couple of Interact clubs going, or a combination of both high schools, but meeting outside the school, like at some church or the Elks Club or somewhere. So if you find a captive audience, see, I was the band director now down there, so I had a captive audience. I had my kids. So my club grew with my kids that I was teaching, but those kids went out and recruited their friends that weren't in my band. So I think if you look for a group that has a captive audience already in the high school, DECA, the band director, the choir director, whoever, even the coach, maybe he can get his football players or his basketball players to join. So that's one way to recruit, I think. One of the easier ones too, instead of trying to shake the kids out of the tree, just find somebody that's already has a bunch of kids. They're captive, get them going. And I was lucky because two of my girls did fantastic. They went to RILA, and one of them won the composition contest that they had at RILA. She became a journalist. She went on to college, graduated, and was anchor down at the ABC station in El Paso. So the kids are great. One as a teacher, I'm kind of go off on a tangent here. They keep saying that our kids are not doing well, that the teachers are terrible. It's not true. It's not true at all. All the students that I had went on, whatever they went on to, whatever endeavor after high school and after college, they were successful. I have 3 kids that are doctors now that went to UNM, and they got their medical degrees. I got a kid who's writing music for the movies in LA. So this that we're 49th or whatever compared to other states, no, that's just not true.
I tell other adults, if you think that things are so bad with these kids, you need to sit down and talk with them. And don't talk about what their favorite food is in the cafeteria or their favorite class. Ask them about their world. And then listen, and you're going to be amazed. Okay, one of the others, maximizing the governor's visits. Do you guys look at that? What do you think of that one?
You don't think we have enough governor visits? We got to maximize them. We got to get more of them going.
Yes,
Yeah.
Portales gave me a
Way too few
gave me
visits going on.
Portales gave me a certificate for going back the third time.
Well, I think Bob could beat you. He could do 5 visits. How's that?
Yeah,
You know, and we'll be discussing this on that subject. We've sort of been given, at least in the zone, the ability to pick and choose if we want to visit a club or not. We don't have to, according to our current director. So my question to you guys is, do you think it's important for a governor to go to a club that really is not interested in visiting?
you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to be there. And I think part of that going is showing the flag.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, Carla?
You know, Bob, I know that most clubs really enjoy when district governors come out and when they relate a concrete vision of how they want Rotary to go. And I think I think it's good sometimes to see the visits. I know this year, unfortunately, like for Sunny, it was
This is like Star Trek. Beam me up.
So Jeff, how many are in attendance this morning?
Looks like we have 29, and that's physical attendance. I'm not sure about mental attendance. Just because as a past secretary, I always track mental attendance. But I'm going to assume it's 29 mental attendance as well. And there could be a few more before the end of the day. Real quickly, before we get into the next session, we have a number of people that I just want to thank, especially all of the governors who are part of this training, not just the current Governor Sonny and the incoming Governor Bob and the Governor nominee John, but we have a number of past district governors. And I really want to thank them because they have so much experience that they're able to help you all with. And I really want to thank them, Linda and Gary and Tom and Dan, and I believe Dick will be joining us later, but I really just want to thank you all. It's great for you to give back, and we just appreciate your time and your commitment. So, okay, Jesse and Dan, are you ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
as well
Dan,
be.
you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. So this segment is talking about AGLG role in a virtual world. So the two of us, it's Dan Garrison, who's a PDG, and I'm Jesse Allen. I've been an AG and an LG in this district. So Dan and I have talked this through, and we're just going to kind of give it together. I'll guide, and Dan's going to jump in wherever. And really, kind of the beginning of this is your role is really the same thing that it is in a real world. Virtual isn't different. Help your clubs prosper and keep your DG up to date on everything that's going on. And I added this because I really talked to Sunny, and she really emphasized something that I agree with. She said, the real key is making relationships, you know. So you gotta call people. And I think in our discussion just a few minutes ago, we were discussing how those connections are made sometimes via phone, sometimes via text, sometimes via Zoom. You just have to learn the club and the people and what they are, but making these personal relationships. And the other second point here is be known to your clubs. Be like an extra member. Attend a meeting and everybody just thinks, well, you're just part of us. That's the goal. So we could all talk about the problems. People don't feel connected. People don't have enough bandwidth or hardware. Maybe they lack the tech skills. Online meetings lack energy and spirit.
They do.
Speakers, we've talked about what we can do there. We've got a speaker bureau. Clubs maybe not doing projects and fundraisers, or not having meetings at all, or board meetings. Clubs not staying in touch with members, I think, was one that was brought up just a minute ago. You got to really reach out to stay in touch. So there are problems, but our focus in this section is going to be on opportunities. The virtual world has its problems, but you can help find resources to overcome those. But think about your opportunities. The big one I see is you don't have to travel. So you can get to everything and get everything quickly. Club meetings, board meetings, meet with your leaders, virtual events, and you can do this all week long. So here's one, and Jimmy just brought this up in our separate conversation, maybe worth a little comment. Virtual meetings are now an opportunity to bring together people from different areas. In El Paso, and I know Las Cruces does it, I'm not sure what all areas do it. We have a council of presidents meeting. We have for years. But I know many of you in different parts of the district are far away from other clubs, so it doesn't make as much sense. But now in a virtual world, you could have something like our Council of Presidents. Jimmy, do you want to mention any comment on that? Jimmy's maybe not so with us. Or Dan, do you have a comment on this one?
Yeah, one of the things I've heard from a couple of AGs just talking is that they're not that facilitative with Zoom. And that seems to be the most common program being used by Rotary groups. If you go to the Learning Center on My Rotary, and in the search you put Zoom, you will get a list of things, trainings to get you started in Zoom. Etiquette's how to run the meeting, all of that. And then Zoom itself has tutorials. It's something that's, and I found it's very simple actually to learn to use. So the help is there.
Yeah, and Zoom can help you do a lot of these things. But on this particular point of host a Council of Presidents in across the state as an AG or LG, you could host a Zoom meeting of presidents where they could share what are their speakers, what is working, what's not working. So something the whole district could be doing.
Yes.
And this may get to a technical point that Dan was talking about. If you don't know how to share your screen, it'll really help, because like when you're going through the club goals with your presidents, that's a time to share a screen and both be looking at the RI website together. Any comments or questions on that one?
Jesse,
Yeah.
you were talking about the President's Council meeting. We've got up here in Metro, we have one every first Friday, and we do invite all the presidents to come, and also the AGs and the LG, which is Tony. And but the last time we had a meeting, our monthly meeting with the governor, with Sunny, she suggested that we go and visit other presidents' councils. Is there a way we could put that on the homepage that way? Because I would like to go down and visit the El Paso Council, since I used to work with you guys when I was down there.
I think that's a great idea. Certainly in El Paso, if you wanted to join, I know Jimmy, you coordinate the El Paso one right now, right?
Yes, correct. I facilitate the meetings there every month.
So on that very specific one, Frank, you could contact Jimmy. But I guess Sonny and Bob, your thoughts on this, having a spot on the website?
I think we could definitely do that. And Jimmy said that he would invite the AGs to the next El Paso Council of Presidents meeting. So there'll be an invitation coming out. But I'll make sure we have a way to reach all the councils. We have 2 at the moment. We hope to have more.
You know, going forward, Governor Sunny's wanted to make the councils more widespread, and we can really sort of get into maybe a hybrid kind of situation where clubs that meet in person can share with people that can't be there. And then we could also have virtual councils in action areas where the clubs are very spread out and they're really not geographically convenient to meet.
Right. So thinking forward, we're forced in a virtual world now, but think of the opportunity over the coming years. Now that we're used to working together online, we could really get clubs together.
So Jesse, may I just make a request of everyone on the call that you, number one, visit a Council of Presidents meeting if you haven't already, at either Albuquerque or El Paso, and that you talk with your presidents-elect and find out if they'd be interested in participating in a regional Council of Presidents by Zoom in their communities. We think it's a great resource and we'd like to foster it.
And Jesse, I just posted in my my email. If you would just send me an email, and I could go ahead and add you to our next meeting, which is on the second Tuesday of every month, and we meet at 7 a.m.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy. So you posted that in the chat?
Yep.
Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
And I'm going to go ahead and, this is Mark Tobias, and I run the central area one. I'm going to go ahead and post my email on the chat too, in case anybody wants to join ours. It's the first Friday morning at 7:30. So we have them coming up next week.
Well,
Thank
good.
you, Mark.
Welcome.
Certainly other opportunities. This is your chance really to connect with some of your remote clubs. Actually, while they're still meeting via Zoom primarily, it's a chance to get connected with them very early. So I would encourage that. And Dan, I'm not trying to hog it, so hop in here anywhere you want.
No, you're getting it just fine. Let's keep going.
Virtual technology, certainly Zoom is the big one, but we know that some are using GoToMeeting, Microsoft Teams, WhatsApp, Google Meet. They're all useful tools. Generally, I've found Zoom to be the easiest, but they're all useful tools. So I guess the rest of the opportunity, I would focus on attending club meetings. It's your chance to go see how they are doing. Are they meeting? Are the meetings engaging? Are they having fun? Think about their meetings. Look at it. Is there excitement? Are people getting engaged? This is your chance to really observe everything that's going on in a club. Are they doing projects? In their meetings, they'll be announcing what projects they're doing. Are they doing it? So all of these are opportunities for you to jump in and help them, make suggestions. But and this really is not that much different than a face-to-face world. It's just with virtual meetings, you have the opportunity and the time to do this. This is also a chance for you to get out and learn best practices. Go to all your club meetings, see who's doing something right, see who's doing a good speaker, see who's using maybe video well. Suggest to your clubs they attend other club meetings. Like I always invite anybody I talk to, come join our meeting. And I'd say that's all of you. If you want to come join West El Paso, go to our website. Our meetings are open to Rotarians just like they always have been. But it's your chance to see what formats are working, see what kind of speakers are good, see what kind of projects people are doing, and guide your other clubs to talk and look for ideas, see what are good fundraising ideas. So that's your chance to observe a lot.
Bob, you had something to say?
Sure.
I'm sorry if I'm interrupting. Just want to throw this out. We're elevating Rotaract into sort of an equal club, and so we have one club, one Rotaract club down in Utah, and I would like to maybe get them involved with club visits from AGs and the district governor as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Jimmy, do we have them as part of our Council of Presidents?
Not yet.
That would be an ideal opportunity, is get Rotaract as part of these president councils.
Yeah, in fact, at the last training that we had a Rotaract person that wanted to attend, so she sent me her email. So I will invite her to our next council president's meeting.
Yeah. Thinking more about opportunities, attend club meetings. It's your chance to go to a meeting, offer to be a speaker. I think one of our AGs in the last session talked about being invited to talk. Be available to talk to your clubs. That way you can announce pets, talk about district conference, talk about what we're going to do, talk about RLI, Leadership Institute, promote it. I think these are all opportunities right now. While you're meeting, you can get out there and see people more often. Also keep them updated on RILA and Youth Exchange. Michelle, I saw you're on. Do you talk to clubs about Youth Exchange and what's going on?
I've attended 2 Rotary clubs since last November. Actually, our Belgian child, who is the youngest member of Belgian Parliament now, he went back to his Hobbs club. So I went to theirs, and then I went to the one of the adjacent club meetings. But I need to actually ask my Rotarians this week in the committee for all 8 of us to make an effort to attend other club meetings and start making youth exchange announcements. We're hoping that Rotary International in the next 2 weeks gives us a green light if we can have children vaccinated and going to school in person. And if they give us that green light, we're going to need to search really fast for districts, for clubs and host families across the district.
So here's an opportunity. As Michelle finds out more and gets you the word, you can really help her connect to the clubs to get the word out. The RI convention, spread the word about Polio Plus. DEI, there's an opportunity. This is something new in Rotary. We want to get the word out. Maybe you could be the person to give a talk or offer. Actually, let me ask about that. Do we have any, I guess of our current Sunny or others, do we have anybody specifically that talks on this subject that we should promote at the clubs?
Yes, if you don't remember, DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's always been Rotary's commitment, and we're bringing it to the fore to remind people we could be actively engaged in this. Right now, we have one person in our District Speakers Bureau listed on the district website who is the current president of the Taos Club. His name is Louis Gentet, and he's available to talk about DEI. He'll also be facilitating a breakout session on this issue at the district conference. We really want a committee on this, and we don't have that yet. So if you run across anyone who's interested in pursuing this with us, please send them my way.
Okay, so I'll confess now, but I don't have a lot of time. I am on the NAN committee for DEI. Bowtie Todd, I forget Todd's last name, from Arkansas. He's the lead of that.
Jenkins,
they're doing a great job. They did a presentation, as a matter of fact, yesterday or the day before, on Rotarians experiencing issues with inclusion and acceptance. It was really a great conference, a little over an hour meeting on Zoom in the last couple of days. So I am very interested in the subject.
Was it recorded?
Yes, it was. I'll try to get you the link, Sunny, so we can post it.
I think everybody might want to hear that. I was sorry to miss it. And yes, we'll consider you a closet supporter until you can come out actively. Thank you. Okay. That's great. Good to know that you're a resource.
So these are things we could be sharing, particularly things that are changing. Are there others, anybody like to highlight? Sunny,
yes,
Dan,
Jesse.
Bob? Yeah.
Jesse, we should mention Toastmasters Alliance also.
Great one.
because we're just getting that off the ground. It's getting very exciting. I'm in a Toastmasters club. Other Rotarians are joining one. You can visit one and you can invite Toastmasters to visit yours. They make great speakers. They always want to practice and they're practicing, so they're good. So
So there's a great opportunity to promote Toastmasters to be speakers at every club in the district.
yes, exactly.
So there's an opportunity of
If you-
something we can
just
do
to
while the
say-
virtual world is in place.
Just to say, if you go to toastmasters.org, you can find a club or you can find all the clubs in our district and they will tell you if they meet online and if they welcome guests.
Jeff, could you tell the people about the success you've had with the Rotary Leadership Institute online?
Well, sure, but it's the entire team, Dan, as you know. So we've been conducting Rotary Leadership Institute. That's what we used to call the Rio Grande Academy. We've been doing it online. We actually started piloting this before COVID because we thought with a district this large, there ought to be an opportunity for clubs who it's not easy for them to travel to a Roswell or an Albuquerque to participate with RLI. So we've been doing these online and they've been very well attended, not just from within our own district, but from other districts nearby where they don't really have the Zoom capabilities or the knowledge on how to conduct these virtually. So it's been a great experience for those who've been attending. It's enriching to have so many people involved and get different perspectives. So it's been great to be able to conduct RLI online last year.
At one point, I think we had 4 districts in 3 countries represented.
Yes.
Okay. So it can be very successful.
Right. And thinking about that, multiple districts, it's a great topic for speakers, promote speakers from all over the country, all over the world. I know some clubs have speakers from various parts of the world. This is an opportunity for you to promote new ideas. The Speakers Bureau that we've talked about on the district site, promote ideas about virtual fundraisers. Again, if you get out and see what people are doing. We did a virtual fundraiser. We did an online cooking class. And so that replaced some of our face-to-face fundraising and project ideas. Also, this is your chance to go attend a lot of these things. Attend fundraisers, attend club events. And finally, kind of wrap up, maybe you could be a resource to help people with technology. And if you aren't comfortable with technology, identify someone who is. I'm certainly willing to help people. I do quite a bit with Zoom. I'm very comfortable with it. But think about what makes sense in meetings. You got to make meetings flow. I have a lot of suggestions on how to make meetings work. Do your clubs have separate MC and host? Speaking, singing in unison doesn't work. I think a lot of meetings I've seen, if they aren't somewhat scripted and somewhat planned, they just kind of lose energy and lose momentum. Making the meetings interesting. You got to go actively find speakers. Some people view finding speakers as difficult. I find it one of the greatest opportunities for a club. It can add a lot of energy. Also, look out and see, are your clubs making it personal? I've visited a couple of meetings where nobody's talking to anybody else. They're not greeting members as they show up. There's no interaction. Help people make their meetings personal. Have a meet and greet before the meeting. Do happy dollars. Well, for a while, we stopped doing happy dollars and realized we can do this. We do happy dollars and somebody keeps tab and we just put it on their bill. Make it personal, do member presentations. Do your clubs that you support, do they have presentations by members? Do people talk about what they're doing? And the final point I had is reach out. See that people are actively following up with club members that are not attending club meetings. You'll find there's different reasons. Their computer's not working or their audio's not working, or sometimes they just don't like Zoom. Sorry about that. Dan, do you have any final comments to wrap all this up?
I think, you've covered the things that we talked about. The one thing I want to point out is that the opportunities are greater than the impediments. And not only limited, we're limited only by our collective creativity. I don't have to have all the ideas. Someone else can have one too. So
yeah,
if we utilize that and talk and work together, lots of good things can happen.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, we wrapped up on time.
Linda's got a question. Governor Linda's got a question or a comment.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm reading the chats right now with all these different links, and they're all wonderful. Jeff's got one so we can donate direct. John Drissom just sent one on Join Online for district websites. All these are wonderful, but I'm going to tell you, and I hate to put it this way, I've just kicked over into the senior movement. I don't know how to do these things independently. I think this is part of the problem. We need to open up a training session for us, for seniors like me, that would make us feel comfortable. We're all saying, Jesse, we've got these things. We've got these things. Go to here, go to there. You know as well as I do, because you've helped me how many times. Let's have a training sessions for seniors. And maybe we can come up with a cute word. Arturo's good at that. For people to be more comfortable using these apps.
Linda, it's a great idea. Actually, the president of the Carlsbad Club, Jessica Onsuris, has offered one such session for presidents and presidents-elect, and we will create one for seniors ASAP.
For mature people.
Yes. People of a certain age, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
And we will speak.
All of us in seniors, mature people.
Right.
That's better.
We will speak slowly and with great volume.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Sonny, I'm willing to help out with that too.
Oh, great. Thank you,
I have
Jesse.
plenty of ideas on making this work.
Wonderful.
I think also to supplement that, there is a role at the club level for whether it's training or mentorship, because each club may do it somewhat differently.
Right.
So I think it's important to reach out to the club leadership to say, look, if we're going to have these meetings online, there are some of us who need to know how it works and kind of make them feel calmer about it. So I think there's a club role as well, just because clubs may do it different ways.
Good point. And actually, this is probably a good point at which to mention that as AGs and LGs, your job isn't to know everything. It's to know what the resources are and how to get them for people. So don't be daunted. Just know that we can find answers to whatever you get stuck with.
I'm sorry, Sonny. I'm making a change. I do want my AGs and LGs to know everything. I'm sorry. It's just
That's great.
Uh-oh. Strike that from the record then.
Okay, well, thank you, Jesse and Dan. That was great. And we are now going to turn it over to Sonny with Dan and Jesse's support to discuss kind of feedback or observations on assistant governors and lieutenant governors from this Rotary year. So Sunny, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm doing the intro and then Jesse and Dan will facilitate a conversation about challenges and case studies and roadblocks, anything that you might encounter. So start saving up your questions. What I will share with you is the results of a survey we did. Sorry, I just got distracted by the chat. A survey we did just before I took office as your governor to ask the club presidents what they thought about their AG experience. We didn't use any names. We did a little brief survey, about 10 questions, and we sent it to current club presidents and immediate past club presidents. And we asked them things like, how often have you interacted with a member of the district leadership team, and how many times has your AG visited your club? Basically, we had 29 responses, which is about 43% of our total clubs. I think that's respectable, for surveys, but we can always do better. Most of them remembered their AG visiting, 8 of them once, 3 of them twice, 12 of them more than 3 times. So there's a lot of variation. As you may recall, the request of you is that you visit your club once every quarter, either by Zoom or phone or in person when that's possible. Not too many had visited board meetings, but some did. We asked them, if you could have an AG visit your board meeting, would you want them to? And this is interesting. 10 said yes, 9 said no, and 10 said maybe. So I guess the lesson on that is ask them if they would find it useful for you to be at their board meeting. It's incredibly useful from your standpoint if it happens to work, because you gain extra insight into what's going on in the club. But the thing I want to share with you most, we asked how many times you've asked for assistance from an AG and what kinds of things were you asking? And all but 6 had reached out to AGs, and they had a variety of requests. Some, of course, would like your assistance in inducting their new board. And so we have a script for that if you need it. Some wanted administrative guidance on things like entering their officers in Club Runner or their goals in Rotary Club Central. They were inviting people to social events. They were asking for help in registering a new club, satellite club, or Rotaract club, or when we get to it, a new club. Some wanted to ask questions about youth exchange, about RILA, about how to do recognitions of club members. Sometimes you might be asked, for example, to present a Paul Harris Fellow Award, which is really a great honor. Some wanted just information on stuff like what kinds of projects can we do now, or what kinds of fundraising events can we do now? So knowing the resources on that's really important. When I asked them if they had recommendations about how the district leadership team might be even more effective at supporting them, I'm going to give you these ideas too, because it may help. Some wanted more information on how to collaborate with other organizations. This is, I think, going to be more and more key as we go forward. Everyone always wants to hear what other clubs are doing. So that's one of the reasons why a council of presidents is so valuable, and why talking to one another and finding out what's going on everywhere is so important. I think our monthly calls for AGs are useful in that regard too. They said they want more information on how to grow their membership, how to get grants, and then let's see what else. Oh, and then here's the final thing they said. What I really want from my district leadership team is that you stay in touch regularly. Reach out and be responsive. One person said, return phone calls. That should be a no-brainer, but I'll mention it anyway. The last thing I want to say before we open the floor for questions and sharing and just comments is the zone level also conducted a survey, and they asked club presidents who you go to when you have a question or a problem. And those who could always turned first to senior members of their own club. But right after that, assistant governors were the key. You are literally the glue that holds our district together. And the more we can facilitate communication with our clubs and among ourselves, the more successful we'll be. Does anyone have any questions of me? All right. Dan and Jesse, take it.
Okay, well, I would start out maybe asking for anybody that has a particular response or thought on any of those topics that Sunny just brought up.
I think it's fascinating that a Rotary club would not want their upper leadership to attend their board meeting. And I think that's got to be based somewhat in fear that they'll be called out for not using the Robert's Rules of Order, which is like sometimes necessary and sometimes just plain not, or some other little bit of fear. And how would an LG or AG, this would be an interesting presentation, how would an LG or AG start a conversation regarding attending the board meeting and try to undo that fear element when they start? And Sunny's pretty good at doing those kinds of introductions. Like, I would just love to listen to your board meeting without saying anything, and give them an opening for that you to just attend. And I'm not here to criticize. I just want to know how I can be helpful, whatever.
Yes, there's been a history, I don't think just in this district, and it's kind of history now, not present, but people have been afraid of the governor and the district governors because they think that we're going to be critical and we're going to castigate them for not having sent 2 people to Riola or having, whatever. Okay, quickly, we have someone speaking at the district conference who has a book called Love is Just Damn Good Business. And the premise is that leadership that is effective is based in love, is based in relationship. It's based in caring about people. And when you communicate that, everything else becomes possible. Thank you, Michelle. That was really a great comment. The other piece that goes with that is people aren't willing to take risks until they feel safe, until they trust the people around them. So if we want innovation in our clubs, we need to be able to encourage them to take risks, and that means they need to be feeling loved.
Right, and that gets back to being there and being with them so that you're well known, so they're just comfortable with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Mark Tobiasen has also been a big help to me as a Rotarian way back, in being able to open those kinds of hard conversations. I think Sunny and Mark are both well trained in that idea. And I think individual conversations with them could be really beneficial to your skills.
Thank you, Michelle. We are certainly available.
Okay. Other responses to Sunny's observations and poll?
I'm sorry, they were scared of me.
It's kind of hard to believe.
I was scared of them.
Yes. Yes, we understand. We forget that a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. We think a stranger is somebody to be feared, so we need to build that.
Just a quick comment. It seemed like, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago, and maybe before that, if you ask people at the club, what do you think about the district, their feelings were not very favorable. they viewed it as kind of compliance and dictatorial. And I feel like, especially in the last few years, there's been a real concerted effort to get that reputation out and but not overwhelm anyone, but just kind of reinforce that our role is to help and serve and support. So it seems like if that was in place a number of years ago, that has been shifting.
Thank you, Jeff.
I have the same impression, Jeff.
Good side.
And you know, our good friend, past Vice President Greg Pod has made the same observation, that we are a district healing.
Do any of the rest of you have a sense that maybe you're not welcome at any point, like at a board meeting? Just curious about that.
You know, Jesse, this is Leah. I have been to many board meetings for different clubs. And on my club, I sit on the board. I have been on the board for the past, I don't know how many years since so even my group, sometimes I think they feel like when you an AG or an LG sitting on their board, they're a little bit scared to tell you what anything. They feel like, okay, are they going to report it to the governor? Are they going to report it to the zone or something? That's what I think they feel like. They feel like sometimes I'm going, why are they so afraid to say something when I'm there or something like that? That's what I'm on a board. The regular meeting, they usually love it when because I bring back the feedback from the district and stuff like that. They go, gosh, you've got so much information to give us and things like that. But on the board, I think they don't want you to, they know that they kind of feel afraid to have somebody in that position attending their board and stuff like that. I think that's what that, like Michelle said, they feel like, oh, they're not obeying the rules of order and stuff like that.
Right.
That you're going to report on them for not obeying those orders and stuff like that.
Well, and I think it's maybe not totally clear to everybody that the clubs really are very independent. I mean, unless there's something grossly wrong, the district and RI aren't controlling or monitoring. I mean, they're trying to help.
Yeah, but I think they think that you coming to a meeting like that, you might go report that this club is not doing what they're supposed to be doing and stuff like that. I think a lot has to do with that.
I think one of the things that we have to do is realize that you need to build that personal relationship, because that's how you get trust. You need to be able to come through if there's a problem, and you need to help them find a solution.
Right.
Find the resources in the district. You're an outsider coming in, and one of my favorite lines right away, when people said, I suppose you didn't like the way we did, I said, there are no Rotary police. Yeah, there are none. We're in a common situation trying to work toward a solution. It doesn't matter if I'm from the district, except I may have some resources you don't have.
Right.
Well,
I think it's a good
I'll agree,
catchy-
Dan. They used to always want to, when I was governor and I would attend a board meeting, they would hand me their financials. And at the end, I would always hand them back. And they were like, don't you need to keep that? And it was like, no, this is your personal information. We don't put this on file. You're autonomous. That's your personal information. And there's kind of a line you walk with a club. And I do believe that they think we want to know all of their inner workings, financially. And it's kind of hard. it's kind of hard. And I think that's where they stand off a little bit. And once you tell them, you know, your bank account's your bank account, as long as you pay the district, you know, and pay RI, we're happy with you, you know.
Once they understand you're not from the government and you're not there to help them.
Exactly. Exactly.
That you're another Rotarian who's willing to step in and help.
We're
if
there
needed.
to help.
Yeah.
We're just there to help. We're just like everybody else.
And
You know,
Dan,
it's-
I think that's a really good phrase to repeat. There's no Rotary police. It's catchy, it's memorable, and it's the central point.
Yeah,
Jesse?
I remember
Jeff?
when I was working as a executive secretary for the Rotary Club before I became a member. They would tell me that the governor was coming to visit, and we had to print this massive book, like 50 or 60 pages.
Yes, you
and
did.
have everything ready for them. And I'm like, but why are we doing this? Because that's what the governor wants. And I'm like, the governor wants this at a lunch meeting and a board meeting. That's not gonna come out. But we used to print it. I remember having to go to Kinko's and get all those things printed and bound and give it to the governor. And I'm like, and then when as the years started, where they started changing and everything, I'm like, oh my, why did we print all these for the board members and give it out to the governor, and the governor left it right there on the table.
He gave it back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, because I remember those days, I was like, man.
Times are
Right.
changing. We're more flexible than ever. And
That's
much more-
right.
Yes.
Well, let me ask, is there in the poll that Sunny was telling you about, was there anything else that stood out to anybody that you have a comment on?
Jesse, I have a question.
Yes.
And maybe a comment after. I'm curious, Sunny, given the unique role that lieutenant governors have, did you get any feedback from the clubs about lieutenant governors? Because in a sense, they're kind of in this in-between role. They're supporting assistant governors, but they're also aligned to the clubs, especially if they're nearby and they have a chance to attend meetings. Did you get any feedback about lieutenant governors? Because this whole idea about building relationships at the lieutenant governor level, it's maybe a little more interesting about how that happens.
It can be more attenuated. It really does depend a great deal on the initiative of the individual lieutenant governors. No specific comments were made about lieutenant governors. We basically asked about AGs, and then we asked about district leadership team. And so that embraces not only the governor line and the lieutenant governors and the AGs, but also committee members, committee chairs. A lot of clubs wanted to hear more from the committee chairs and would have liked to have them come and speak, I think, if that were a possibility. A couple of clubs said, what's an assistant governor? That they hadn't seen their person at all, which is heartbreaking. We want to avoid that at all costs. I will tell you, this is one of my favorite statistics. We asked on a scale of 1 to 10, how useful is it to have an assistant governor as a resource? And the overwhelming response was 10. For people who had an assistant governor and knew who it was, and had that person reach out to them and know they were on their side, people were thrilled with the results. The outcomes they got from reaching out and asking for assistance were uniformly positive. So you have an important role. You know,
Would you have anything in that list of responses that you think points to a need for improvement work? Is there anything in your list that you think is almost a call to action?
Yes, I do actually. When I asked, how many times have you asked for assistance? Not everyone had uniformly voluminous responses. And I'm prompted to recall that, you know, we all train our environments in how to treat us. You know, we teach people how we want to be contacted, how we want to be spoken to, all of that. We need to train our clubs to reach out to us, train them to know, you know, teach them that we're on their side, teach them that that's what we're here for, teach them that there's no such thing as too many questions if the questions are there. I think that may be the lesson I would most want us to take away from this.
In fact, come back to Jeff's question about LGs.
Yes.
I know my club really appreciated it. Anytime that club has a special event, not only our assistant governor, but the LG were there.
Yeah.
And they were to show the flag and to,
Yeah.
you know, to pat the club on the back, which is an important part of the job.
It is. It's all part of relationship, isn't it? You know, you're important to me and I celebrate with you.
And I know when I was LG, I took it as an opportunity to go reach out and get to know some clubs that I didn't know as AG. And
Right.
particularly in my area, it went all the way from Silver City to TRC down to El Paso. But I
It's
saw
always a
it as
big
an opportunity.
Yes.
Other comments?
Can anyone think of a question that might come up from your club that would be daunting for you? Or an experience you had that broadened your appreciation of the job?
Or is there maybe a good example of where you really felt like you made an impact?
Well, you're either being shy or you're not paying attention.
Okay,
because-
I will speak about a club.
Okay.
As an AG, and I was in the first class of AGs. No one knew what to do with us. Okay. But I had this club that was in trouble with the district. Wanted to take its charter because they were refusing to have women in the club. Evidently the old governor's reps had not been visiting the club that much. I helped them out with a small problem first, and then I was the good guy and we could talk. But I started finding out that town had a women's club, and it was more prestigious than the Rotary Club. And the men in the Rotary were the auxiliary for the women's club. And it wasn't they were refusing to have women. The women chose to join the women's club, you know, and we finally got that message across, and that the district governor was not your enemy. They put on a banquet at the women's club, you know, and the governor says, the Rotarians are doing all the serving. And I said, well, yeah, they're the auxiliary here. and he took a look at that and said, well, we have it all wrong, haven't we? And I said, yes. And he told the club that we had it wrong. And it ended up 2 years later, they got a superintendent of schools that said, no, I've always been a Rotarian. I want to be a Rotarian. And she joined the Rotary Club. So,
yeah.
And it's a willingness to find out where that club is coming from.
Right.
Yeah. You know, we often don't know the history of how things happen.
Right.
And situation in the town. You know, and in the small towns, and the same people are in the Rotary Club and the Kiwanis or the Lions or whatever, and in the churches and doing this thing and that, and it's awfully hard to separate them out sometimes.
Right. Well, we
And they
don't,
don't need to be, because that's not what would work for the town.
So I'll ask Bob, do you have any comments you'd like to make for your AGs moving forward into this year regarding?
After lunch, I will be making a presentation on that subject of, my thoughts and direction and expectations. I think everything you've talked about so far is right on par exactly. And so it'll be somewhat redundant of the things we've talked about already today. But I think it'll serve to drive home the importance of the things that we're talking about, is how often we go over the same things. And how, the communication, of just being there for them and not going in with an agenda. The agenda is to listen and to be a sponge and to respond as necessary, not to go in with an agenda.
Okay.
may I say one last thing?
Sure.
I was on a call with my classmates, the other governors in the zone, just the other night, and we were talking about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the point was made that sometimes the difficulties that arise in our districts and among clubs have little to do with whether we're rejecting someone who isn't like us, and more to do with whether we've been trained to respond to disagreements civilly. We can be unkind to people who are WASPs. We are not bigoted that way. So I think conflict resolution, conflict management does end up being part of the job of an AG. And it has to do with listening, as Bob was saying, listening and kindness, and a recognition that we aren't all going to agree all the time, but we can still talk about it civilly. And
I'd like to comment, and this is going to be part of the future going down the road. In my office, I have half the people that are 60 and older, and the other half are 40 and younger. The 40-year-olds and younger ones, they think we excuse me, I'm not trying to offend you. You need to understand this. They think we talk too much, we know too much, we've got the experience. Yes, that's true. The 40-year-olds and under, oh my God, they've got their cell phones going at all times. They're saying, we don't want to listen to you. Let's get this done. Don't let the meeting last a long time. It was a learning thing that we went through. I had an attorney in the meeting, and he got so mad. He was 70, and he was furious with the 40-year-olds and under. The 40-year-olds and under, they are a different mindset and intelligence, artificial intelligence with computers. We didn't grow up with computers. So the different mindset, and like you're saying, Sonny, we've got to be respectful, listen to them, but try to remind them that they need to do the same thing with us. That's going to be a problem with these young ones coming in, and we need to embrace them. But we also need to let them know that they're not entitled. They think entitled to everything. Excuse me, I'm being bold about it, but it's going to be a problem down the road.
It's a new challenge and a new opportunity.
It is.
And really, one of life's lessons is learning to play well with others, right?
The comment this week from the diversity and inclusion presentation was also, when I have a conversation with people who are African American, if I say something that is not appropriate and somebody points it out to me, I need to be willing to turn around and say, I'm really sorry that I said that the way I did. That probably was stated wrong. And I am willing to accept that I am a naive about how to approach these issues. I did not grow up in an African-American environment in the rural Adirondacks of Northern New York. And these are things that are foreign to me. And it's the same thing as youth exchange. Being able to have a conversation about why we're different might include things that hurt people's feelings sometimes, but you have to see it and then talk about it and be willing to apologize for it. And this is all getting back to the same exact question of communication. So the diversity and inclusion stuff is also a real eye-opener for all of us to be able to increase our ability to understand and explain.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. Jen, you wanted to say something.
Well, I was going to say on the comments on the less than 40 people, I'm 39, so I hope not all of us are like that. So I just wanted to say, like, I totally get it. Some people are, but I'm hoping not all of us are like that.
Well,
Oh, thank you.
we
Well, Jeff,
need to avoid
we're-
stereotyping, right?
And I think maybe that's where we need to focus on training on what is leadership and breaking it down and teaching leadership skills. And I think we need to look at people, because sometimes we put people in leadership positions that have never been trained. You know, one of the things that I love, that when I was very, very young, you know, I attended DuPont training. I attended Total Quality Management. Cambridge Think Tank Committee. It wasn't that they were wanting my knowledge, they were wanting to teach me to be more knowledgeable. And maybe sometimes as AGs, we forget that, and we forget looking at what are good leadership skills and how do we acquire them. And it's about exposing them to good leadership skills, because we can sit here and go negative back and forth, but as AGs, we have to be leaders. And how do we work with our clubs to make them better leaders?
Strongest way of teaching is modeling.
Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely. And I think we don't do that enough.
Jesse, are we ready to go to a break?
I think we're ready.
Okay, so let us reconvene at 10:15. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. So we're going to go into a breakout session for our 5 different areas. And I just want to do a quick explanation because of who is with us today and who is not, and suggestions on how we do this. So we typically do this every year. It is one of the most positive sessions of AGLG training in terms of the feedback that we get. A chance for the lieutenant governor and the assistant governors in their area to kind of convene and strategize and think about how they want to go about this upcoming year. So we're going to do that now in 5 breakout rooms with a couple of caveats. For the North area, Debbie Cox was supposed to be here, and she has friends visiting her in Angel Fire, and they are skiing right now. So while we do not feel sorry for her, she is not here. So I'm going to ask Bob to join the North team in their breakout room. And Clint is without his assistant governor here today. So I'm going to ask Sonny and John to be with Clint to think about the Southeast for the year. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, the purpose of this next session, we've got till 11:30, is to kind of discuss strategy issues, how you're going to work together. And I'll be floating around, but we do want to have this be a valuable opportunity to discuss some specifics. Okay. So we'll go ahead and break. But before I do, I just want to make sure that we've got everyone accounted for, and we do. All right, here we go, folks.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. That made my day.
I thought I was being called to the principal's office for a minute. But I do have a little bit of announcement. I've been taking care of a hospice patient that tested positive for COVID. So I'm in presumed positive isolation right now, but haven't had any signs for the past 4 days. And I've had both vaccine shots. So it's a minor formality, but my second vaccine shot was on Wednesday, the day of my last contact with the person. And I wear N95 masks in my medical capacities of taking care of people. I took all the precautions. So I'm not worried about it, but I'm still taking all the meds that they recommend just in case.
Yeah, very good. Glad you're okay. How's your mom?
She's fine. She's it was a good test for her. She's in there. I have food brought in every morning from Sonic and good burritos and stuff like that. and keep the house aired out. But I'm in a second little house.
Yeah.
There's a back portion that I can seal off from it. That's okay. And like I say, I have a supply of N95 masks, and it's good to double mask. I mean, this is something that will make it
Yeah.
almost as effective, our COVID lesson for the day.
Yeah.
Where these, you go to a Rotary Club or you meet a Rotarian,
Yes.
do this. These are 3-ply and these are 2-ply. And this way you won't offend anybody in Rotary.
Very good. Thank you. And can you tell us, Clint, anything about the status of your clubs out there in the Southeast?
Well,
We have Fort Stockton with us. Yay.
Yeah, they've been a real problem. You know, they've got this guy named Jim Hatcher. No,
Very small part of Fort Stockton.
they are really active, but Marfa's been active in Zoom, but they are adamant. They are not meeting. The president scheduled a meeting social and no one showed up.
Wow.
So it was the most embarrassing moment for the president, and people were protesting the fact that it was even being scheduled or thought of. We had an event with Presidio, Marfa, and even Alpine. I've got new members lining up and jumping to restart Alpine.
Great.
But the problem is we can't have an event to get together.
Right.
The politics of the situation is just beyond control
Right.
at this point. So
Fingers crossed that we can get together
had-
soon. I'd love to see them reconstituted. That would be fabulous.
I
Do you
had
think-
events.
Do you think Rod Ponton could be president so we could see the kitty
Well-
cat all the time?
That is so amazing. Actually,
See the what?
Rod Ponton, he was the kitty cat.
Oh,
they actually dedicated a national emoji for Rod now. That symbol is now the actual emoji that is in all these things. It's called the I'm not a cat emoji, and
Oh
it's
my God.
going up.
so tell us about Presidio, because nobody
that-
seems to be returning our calls and
Yes, and that's
even-
I've been still in contact with Vicky there since her brother died from COVID. That's put a really ringer. I mean, she would be here probably today if it weren't for that. And I've spoken with them some, but I think we're just a victim of our times at this point, and you feel helpless. You know, it's just.
So tell us how many members, are they doing anything? Are they staying in touch with one another? Will they
They're
pay their
pretty
dues?
much-
You know, things like.
They're pretty much staying in touch with one another. And
How many members are there now?
they've still got about 7, maybe 8 people that are
And Vicky
really-
is functioning as the president?
she was, and we were really on a roll there, but then her brother died. You know, and
Right.
so now, I mean,
know.
it's just, and I have been in phone conversation with several people that they're ready to show up and do something in terms of being new members.
How soon that needs to happen. Here we are in February. They're going to be there until the end of June. Suggestions, Dan or Bruce, ideas on what's a good timing on getting folks started to meet with those clubs? As far as the end of the year, would you suggest?
I'll offer something that happened to me. When I found out I was going to grants,
Yeah. We didn't really hear the last thing you said, Deb, but like you, going around and actually joining the clubs as the AG, at first they were a little skeptical as to why I was showing up. They were wondering if they were in trouble, why was I there? And when they realized I was just there to be a part of their group, to show them that they were a part of the district, they were very welcoming. They were always very welcoming. And it was an amazing experience to get to know everyone. Carla, how about your experience?
Okay, so I'm a past president, as we all are, and then this is my third year that I'll be going in as an AG. it'll also be my last year as an AG because
join them that way, because this year with I mean 2020 with the COVID, we had a lot of problem getting all the toys out in a timely fashion, and sorting was kind of hard because a lot of the people, we couldn't allow any of the high school kids to come and help us at all. We couldn't allow that.
But we don't have a form, and that's something I'd like to do, is to have sort of a technology committee in the district with the expertise in this area, and we might even get some district audiovisual resources to use on it. I see that being used on a district level though, as opposed to being mailed out to the clubs for them to use. Now, if we do have surplus money in the coffers, and it's possible that clubs we might entertain the idea in the finance committee of setting up a system where clubs can ask for some help in purchasing audiovisual equipment if they would like to, so they can continue doing hybrid meetings. How does that sound, Tom?
Well, that sounds good. I wasn't really thinking in terms of financial help. I was thinking more in terms of, although that'd be nice, I'm sure, for some clubs. I was thinking just so we don't reinvent the wheel, maybe the tech committee can tell us what works for a hybrid meeting where, Jeff, we're talking about, 10 people that might want to be joining an in-person meeting but don't feel like they can yet, even if the state allows it. And so we can have a nice camera and a nice big video screen, kind of like they do on CNN.
Yeah.
Have some real interaction between those that are not there and those that are, and have speakers that don't necessarily have to drive to Santa Fe or drive to the meeting.
Yeah. Well, we can certainly. I think that's a good idea to have a like we have a strategic planning cadre now that can do consulting work with clubs on developing their goals and their strategic strategies. Maybe we should have a tech cadre that is consultative that can be asked to get involved with helping clubs with their hybrid models on a consultative basis. Is that what you're sort of thinking about?
Yeah.
It's a good idea. Marshall and I put an article in the newsletter a number of months ago when there was talk about hybrid meetings, because it's a great idea, but the logistics are really tough. And so we kind of put in, what best practices are, and you're right. The thought of it is reasonable. Pulling it off is tough. And I know, someone like Sunny, when she would be on Zoom and a group was in a restaurant meeting, they could hear her fine because the TV or whatever they had a speaker. She couldn't hear them. So one of the notions is that the room needs to have some kind of speaker system so that the people who are on Zoom can easily hear what's going on in the room in case the speaker's there or in case there's questions. So there's a lot of considerations, but I think it's going to be happening more as the state is kind of opening up and people are going to want to get back together, but not everyone.
In Santa Fe, when people want to speak at our Rotary Club, we do have a couple of microphones that we pass around. So at least we're used to that concept. And if we had a microphone that fed into a Zoom link or something,
right?
My point is, somebody's probably figured out what the best technology is. So if there were a white paper on what you need to make for a successful hybrid meeting, that'd be a great resource for our club and possibly for other clubs that are wanting to get back together in person, but not everybody wants to. Not everybody feels like it's healthy for them personally. And if we're going to be all, try to be more inclusive, it'd be great to be able to find a way to include them.
The other thing we go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The other thing we discovered that Marshall and I didn't think about because it really wasn't a technology issue. So during the meeting, so 1 hour block, if there's a meal, people are eating and talking at their tables. The Zoom people may be eating, they're not talking to anyone. Or if they're talking to the other people on the Zoom. So the meal fellowship time is really weird if you don't figure out how to structure that, because the Zoom people can get very disengaged if there's all this table talk and they're not part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have a breakout room for each table.
I just thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Breakout room.
Yeah.
Socialize in their breakout room.
But again, the key there is whoever's hosting, if the host is in the restaurant, they still have to be paying attention to the Zoom people and not just having banter at their table, because again, that'll disengage the Zoom people. But it's a great idea.
It's an
Yeah,
idea
yeah.
with challenges. But,
Yeah, I hadn't anticipated the idea that even after, everybody's been vaccinated, or most people have been vaccinated, and the risk level is way down, some people still may not feel comfortable in gathering in large groups. And the inclusiveness, Tom, you bring up, I think is very valid there. I hadn't even considered that. So thanks for doing that. Something we'll have to talk about.
The point ultimately also is we're already losing Rotarians because they aren't comfortable with Zoom or with the technology, or it's just too frustrating, or it's not the experience that they want in Rotary. That's just going to continue throughout 2021 if we don't figure out a way to make it work for everyone, or as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
I did want to mention to Marcia and Tom, so I did get this email from Debbie apologizing for today. And she said something to the effect of, she'll get with the assistant governors after today and kind of do what we were going to do now. So if that hasn't happened yet, she'll kind of convene a little powwow for you all and work out specifics. But
that's a great idea. I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Something I want you guys to know, or I'll just bounce this off of you. We put this in our district plan, and it came down from our new incoming president, called Rotary Days of Service. Rotary Days of Service. Have you heard anything about that? Yeah, Rotary Days of Service.
Sounds familiar.
The concept, our Rotary incoming president, Shaker Mehta, really wants us to increase.
It's totally rebuilt. So, and so Presidio is just waiting to move on, but it's, and I have a feeling that just the cumulative effects of everything, the adverse things that have been happening have really put people down. So, and then when people die in Presidio, that's a big one, because everybody's connected. Everybody knows everybody. They're all related. It's everybody knows everything that goes on. And when somebody dies, people get sick, and it's a debilitating factor for them. But probably more so than Fort Stockton.
Yeah, and I think they won with we got Impact Club of the Year out of what was going on in Presidio back right after Dave Anderson left. And so
yeah, I was on that trip. That was entertaining.
We're still out there, and it's like I have strong confidence. My work with the government is I work with the general public as a nonprofit, and they're not letting me schedule in Washington, D.C. till 2023. And anything I had this year has been called off. Any funding that I have is only good through the end of the year, and I'm allowed to have meetings and to not lose the funding. And so we've been funded for 10 years with our online infrastructure to build just like this. We've been redeveloping everything. We've got this huge funding for our online infrastructure from the government, and we were getting huge credits in the European Union. So it's like they're not scheduled. They canceled anything that I had scheduled for this year and rolled my tax credits over, fortunately, into next year, which has already happened a year. So this year is setting itself up to be a wash for those of us that are in businesses that involve the general public, is which
Well,
I have.
you know, Rotary International is equally conservative. They've actually counseled against in-person meetings for
Right.
all of us and refused to reimburse travel for anyone but the president of RI and the president-elect and the head of the trustees for the balance of this Rotary year. So until June, nobody travels. Or if they do it on their own dime and against recommendations.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
it does, it makes complete sense.
Makes sense.
It's,
I think as Rotarians, we need to understand that. That's
well,
a-
yes, we're virus fighters. We should be really smart about this and leading the way.
well, that and polio. So, you know,
That's
it's
what I meant, yeah.
yeah, yeah. The masks are one thing, but polio is totally different subject.
Yeah, well,
And I'm terrified what COVID's going to do to set back the polio effort. Doesn't take long for polio to multiply and move on. So
well, we
Well,
haven't halted our efforts, you know, it's actually going forward. And the news so far this year has been very good. I think only one case this year so far.
and where was that?
I want to say Pakistan, I'm pretty sure. Do you remember, Jeff?
I don't. I just know that like
could find out.
for the flu, for example, flu cases are way down
Right.
because of COVID, because people are masking and social distancing. So it may have like a secondary benefit for some of these other diseases because people are staying somewhat removed. So
Yeah, I have a feeling that I'll be wearing a mask a lot for the rest of my life. I really appreciate not getting the flu. I hate the flu. I would get it every year, but you know, this has been really nice. It's turned the flaming extrovert that used to be me into the flaming introvert that is beginning to be. So, but yeah, it's it's a nice side effect of our concern with COVID. And I'm just, you know, we just have to wait and move on through. I don't think that that's one of those things that we can do anything about. Who is your AG, Clint?
Well, we've got Joe Williams, the coffee man, and
Right.
Vicky, who's doing two things.
Yeah.
And so everything, Joe is pretty much Zoom, but he has to interact a lot with his grocery deliveries and things for his coffee
And
company.
his bull sales as well. When he
We
sells
haven't
cattle.
seen him in a while, Clint.
I know, and it's just.
Is he disaffected? Is he tired of
Well,
being an AG?
that's pretty much always how Joe is, but he's there in terms of what's going on locally.
3 Rotary babies in the meeting and used to pass the infant to other people for burping. Fabulous.
Multitask.
That's funny.
How are you watering your tree?
A gallon of water at a 2 gallons of water at a time from a water pitcher.
It needs the cold from winter. Use ice. Put cubed ice in it.
It's probably going to go onto the front porch into the sun this morning.
Okay.
Straight from a master gardener, so.
Yeah.
It's good
Well
advice.
over my head.
So I remember having this conversation a year ago, which was still in person, right? In QRC.
Yep.
And it seemed like every one of the AGs in our area had a problem club. Every one of us, it seems like, had one club that we were just having a difficult time to get them to get motivated to do what Rotary does. I still have that club. I don't know about Ron and Frank, but there are some challenges out there. And part of the challenge that I see in trying to deal with some of those, that kind of a club, is the fact that we don't want to come in and tell them what to do. Tell them what to do, but we need to suggest the ideas. And some of them, what I'm talking about is the one that's not meeting at all, Dan. It's a Berlin.
Yeah.
They're not meeting at all, and they don't want to meet at all, either online or in person.
Some do.
Yeah.
Some people in the club do.
Oh, is that right? No, I did not know that. Okay.
The leadership.
Oh,
Yep.
that's sad.
So I've talked to them. I've had Sonny talk to them and to the president, and it's just not happening right now.
Well, that's a good question. If there are members that want to meet, I mean, maybe they can't just go around their leadership, but is there a way we can facilitate that? Meet with the ones that want to meet? Or is that?
I don't think we as the district can step in and do that to a club.
Yeah, no, I know, and I don't
No,
want to take over
Yeah,
either, but
but it's not a bad suggestion to those that want to get together.
yeah.
A lot of those folks aren't going to social distance. They aren't going to do what they're being asked to. And that's just a reality. And so we're trying to accommodate everybody and still function as a club. We're still doing projects. We've kind of stopped since the first of the year because of everything that had been shut down so much, Habitat for Humanity, that kind of stuff. We finished up doing signs all around the entrance to the city. So it is a tough time, certainly. But I think if we keep engaging the members, even if it's just through a call and just saying, hey, you're still a member. We had one of our people that was presenting this week. She said, am I still a member? And, she hadn't been for a while. And she was presenting. It's like, of course you are. So, it's just something we have to deal with. And hopefully it's short term, but being from the medical part of the world, they don't think it's short term. So I'm certainly not trying to be political, but just from a planning standpoint, we just have to be ready for as much as we can do and be ready to move. But what we don't want to do is move in, start seeing, and then people get more discouraged because 2 weeks or 4 weeks later, it's like, well, no more meeting.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
You just brought up the speaker this last week. On Thursday, Hobbs had what I thought was going to be an amazing speaker. And I was so psyched and excited to go to their meeting just because of the speaker. That may be something that some of the clubs are struggling with, is finding someone to speak, or even thinking that they can get an engaging speaker on. So have any of you as AGs reached out to your club presidents to offer any assistance or to find out if they need assistance with speakers?
I do. We share speaker area. Lawson and Eunice have reached out to us, and I actually just share our speakers, and it has their contact information.
And you were like, okay, how do we connect? We can't get the Wi-Fi, and you have a speaker who's going to be using it. It's a mess. It takes a lot of technology.
That's Messia. I mean, I live at the edge of Messia, and sometimes my Wi-Fi is questionable.
It's down. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
And one option to get internet at a site is a personal hotspot.
Right.
Again, that's dependent on the quality of your local service for the hotspot. But I've done that.
Steve, now you all, the Deming Club is not meeting face to face, are they?
We are not, but we're going to this coming week.
Okay.
Luna County has gone yellow, and we meet at the country club, and the room is really large. So we're going to start back because Zoom is really
satellite. All told between the two, it's 100. There's about an 80-20 split.
Okay.
The satellite meets in a person's house, and they're doing that totally on Zoom right now. But before that, they were meeting at one of the members' houses with the 20 people. It was much more informal. It was an evening. What our club is doing now is the main club, the host club, is meeting on the first and third Wednesday lunchtime, and the alternating Wednesday evenings is when the satellite meets, so people can attend both.
The Los Alamos Club, I think, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but last year, wasn't Laura Loy their president and she was a member of their satellite group?
I don't remember. I didn't know that she was a member of the satellite group. I guess that didn't come up. But, and she might have gone back and forth.
Okay.
Both, I'm not sure. I did that when we had a satellite group. I was attending both. Is that a formal satellite, like recognized by Rotary International as far as you know, or is that just what they called it, STARS?
I don't believe so. I don't think, as far as I know, and Bob may know differently, but I don't think any of the satellite groups in our district are the official Rotary clubs that need their own board and all of that.
No, a satellite doesn't do that. A satellite is official, you know, it's on the Rotary books, but it is a satellite of the club. The main club has all the governance structure. The satellite has a satellite, I think it's called a president, and that's it.
Right, but I think there was a distinction when they formed in the district that if they were official, meaning RI recognized them, then let's say you went into the Rotary Locator app, you could find the satellite because they were officially present. And I think that the decision was, unless it's changed, we will form these groups, but they're not, the RI doesn't get the official paperwork that says we've got this entity out there. It's more done internally, just so that we can have a different time for people to meet. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but I think there was a distinction initially.
You know, I'd have to, I believe that the formal satellites we have almost like a charter, a satellite charter, but they still fall underneath the host club as far as their identity goes, but they have their own name. I don't know about how that works between Rotary International and us, but I believe that they're recorded at Rotary International somehow.
Bob, I'm going to the other rooms, and I think we can reconvene at 11:15.
11:15. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Sounds good, Jeff. Thanks.
Jeff.
Yes, sir.
How many? So there's 6 rooms. Are there just 2 or 3 people in each room, or how many?
No, there's 5 rooms because we have 5 areas. 3 of them are pretty full because their LG and AGs kind of all came maybe without. This one is small because Debbie couldn't make it, and the 2 other, Tim and Daniel, couldn't make it. And then the 5th room is basically Clint, and Sonny and Jim Hatcher and John are kind of working with him on Southeast, which is kind of its own baby. So so 3 rooms are pretty full.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're having a good time here, Jeff. So the party's going to start again once you leave.
Okay.
Anyway, Marcia, how's it going up in Taos? I've been to your club a few times. I enjoy it when I'm there. How many people are attending?
Typically 12 to 15 every meeting. It's a pretty vibrant club.
It's still on Zoom?
Yeah, it's on Zoom, and we have weekly trivia and usually a pretty good speaker. And Louis Gentet, who's going to be speaking at the district conference, is the president, and he's just really made the meetings. I mean, I don't see how we could have done it without him. It's just amazing what that club is doing.
And what's his name again?
Louis Gentet.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess he's going to be, which I didn't know until just now, he's going to be speaking on the diversity at the conference. So
yeah, he's our diversity DEI task force chair At least currently he's been talking about, he might not be able to do it next year, but he is currently.
And what's Lewis doing that's making it so successful?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
What's Lewis doing that is making it so
Oh,
successful?
the way he runs the meeting, and we have the little breakout rooms, and he'll have a fun question for discussion, and we'll break up into these rooms, and it'll be like things like, what's your favorite all-time book and why? What brought you to Taos? What's your favorite movie? And what's your favorite pastime during COVID? It's just a real icebreaker, and it's letting us get to know each other, especially some of the newer members that I've never met face to face. But the Zoom gives everyone an opportunity to become familiar with everyone else. So, and then, like I said, usually a pretty interesting speaker, and Yale does a trivia test, which is always fun, and good news and announcements. It's just, he just really made it a fun venue in a challenging time.
Yeah.
Like the breakout rooms, I never would have thought of that. But to let everyone mingle and do fellowship, even if we're on a, as he call it, Hollywood Squares.
We've been having members, like member biographies or autobiographies where they come on and they give an audio-visual presentation about their life and background and profession. And because we're about 70 or so, 80 people, a lot of the new people don't know the older people, and a lot of the people that have been around for a while, like myself, I'm learning new things about people that I thought I already knew, about their family, and just, a little bit about each person. So it's about a 10-minute presentation, 10 or 15 minutes, depending upon how much time we have. And they have some time to prepare, and it's fun seeing pictures of them when they were, 8 and 15 and 20, whatever. So that's something, Lewis, it sounds like you're doing a form of that.
I was going to ask, so I'm not Debbie Cox, but
really,
I am curious because I know in the last few AGLG trainings, a big issue for at least some of the clubs in the north, which I think is unique in our district, is the transient notion of a lot of the members, because they may come, let's say, to Taos or Angel Fire for part of the year, and then they go somewhere else. They're coming in for ski season and so on. Is your sense, Marcia, because I know you've got a number of those clubs, has there been some kind of a general strategy that has worked with the understanding that you've got some, this movement of some of the members?
I guess I don't understand the question. A lot of our members, they are transient, but yet they will, even when they're home, it gives them the flexibility to tune in via Zoom, even though they're in Texas or Virginia or wherever they're from.
So just so I'm clear, and I don't know whether it's because we're on Zoom and meeting virtually, but before the challenge was they would leave the area and go somewhere else. And when they went somewhere else, they either resign from the club or something. Now, if everything is virtual, is the notion that if they do leave for a while, they're still going to be members, and the virtual environment allows them to continue to participate?
Right. We have a couple in Taos that say are from Oklahoma or Texas, but they're members of our club. But when they're at home, they attend the meetings locally. So they're still attending meetings, but they're technically members of the Taos Club or what have you. And it's just that with the whole Zoom thing, it's given them more flexibility to attend the Taos meetings on a regular basis. So yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. the Zoom thing. So
So Jeff, we have had some people that have left our club. I don't know if you remember Pat and Bob Murray,
Yes.
but they, we just still, they're not a member of a Rotary Club in Arizona, but we still, and they're no longer official members of the Rotary Club of Santa Fe. But when we send out the Zoom invitation, they and a bunch of other people that used to be in the club are still, we're still sending them to them. And so they show up from time to time, and it's great having them.
So one of the things that, and it's been bounced around, but I don't know whether the district needs to propose this or promote it, but a lot of the club's bylaws prior to meeting virtually said, you know, our members are from this geographic area. And it was defined. But now, with people moving and with Zoom and all that, that geographic boundary may not be as meaningful. So it may require an adjustment to the bylaws that allow for members not to be in some specific region. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if it needs to be adjusted, but it ought to reflect this notion that members don't necessarily have to be in a certain area as long as there's going to be an online platform, even if clubs go to hybrid meetings.
I think that's a good idea. Part of the challenge in Santa Fe has been with the larger clubs, you need a way to meet. And at Hilton Hotel, they're requiring that we pay a certain amount each week for meals. So we just bill the meals annually as part of the dues, which makes the dues, you know, $1,000 a month. A year. Some people don't want to pay that. They don't eat, they don't enjoy lunch, whatever. But prior to COVID, we hadn't really figured out a way to accommodate them. People were joining the satellite club because the satellite club doesn't have that requirement, but then they were attending the main club. So they were just paying the dues without the meals and then attending the main club anyway. So there's a little bit of that going on. So I guess my point is that if people are going to still participate via Zoom, once we're all together, if we figure out the hybrid model and it works,
right?
And we want them to continue to be dues paying members, we're going to have to figure out a multi-tiered system.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Last year's incoming board, I don't think any of them were planning for COVID, right? So this was like a shock to the system, and there's all this reaction and how are we going to adjust? The difference now is that this is something that can be planned and prepared for. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, I think you all as assistant governors are going to be even more pivotal to help clubs plan and prepare for this, because there's a lot of opportunity, but the shock is over, right? So now we can be a little bit more proactive and plan and really think about how to turn it into an opportunity. I felt sorry for this year's leadership because this got thrust on them, and a lot of them were kind of, you know, in a lurch about it, real reasonably. And it's kind of, it's hard to pick up momentum when you've lost it, right? But I think this year, and I've been floating into the other rooms, I think everyone's kind of talking about the same thing, which is what's this going to look like going forward? And even when the COVID part of it is over, is this going to be the future model? You know, hybrid meetings and expanding membership beyond geographic boundaries and more flexibility. So, you know, I think there's a great opportunity this year, and we'll really reinforce that at PETS. But again, I think I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. The Zoom model has changed meetings in that people in our club that we heard from rarely, because they're sitting at the same table with the same people, now are front and center whenever they open their mouth. And that's true of everybody.
That's right.
It's a one person talks at a time. And depending upon your setup, that's the only person you're listening to.
Yeah.
So it's really been some people really like it, prefer it.
It's just interesting, as when Dan mentioned Rotary Leadership Institute and that we're doing really well. We piloted Zoom years ago only because of how large the district was, and people were not wanting to travel. If you were in Farmington and you were having a training in Socorro, they weren't going to come, right? So we said, well, let's do something to really support the clubs that are in the outer reaches. And they loved it. And so even though we obviously didn't want this to happen, we were kind of more prepared for this because we'd already been using it for different purposes. So in a sense, we had a leg up. And we have a lot of infrastructure in the district to help clubs. I know that came up in other breakout rooms too. It's like a lot of clubs need help, whether it's guidance from someone like Marshall. I mean, Marshall is, he is a true savant with this stuff. He really is. So we have a lot of resources that can help clubs, kind of make a real opportunity out of this rather than it be a challenge. But yeah, we lucked out. And these Rotary Leadership Institutes, we've got these other districts because they don't have that background and expertise. So, yeah. So we will go ahead.
Talking about Marshall being a savant, does he have a solution to this hybrid concept of some people meeting in person and some people meeting by Zoom?
I would say yes. Well, let's put it this way. The article that he and I wrote, which primarily is him, about the do's and don'ts for hybrid meetings is still relevant. What we learned is that a number of the recommendations in there, even though they're valid, they're hard for clubs to execute. Like, what's the sound system going to be? So in your case, you had the roving microphones, which is great. If people in a room have computers and phones, then you can get feedback unless everything is muted. So even if you've got the roving microphones, if more than one of them is on, you can get feedback. So it's all those kind of things. And then, as I mentioned earlier, what do you do when you're breaking for a meal? So I think there's an opportunity. Maybe we, I don't know, it's up to Sunny. Maybe we either convene a group or put another article in, because I do think we're getting to the point now where there are going to be more hybrid meetings. We're hearing it come up more than we did before, as counties are opening up and becoming yellow and whatever the other colors are. And then it's making sure that the people who are participating remotely have the same experience. It can't be we're all here in the room and then there's the other people. That's a challenge. But yeah, we're all in this together.
What month was that article written?
It was near the beginning of the pandemic, so I would say probably March or April.
Okay.
Sunny asked us to put something together. So I'm thinking March or April, maybe May at the latest. I think the other challenge is beyond the meeting challenge, because there are clubs where that was their primary Rotary function was meetings. a lot of clubs have found, even though the meetings are tough, they can still do service projects. And so if the meetings are a challenge for people to even push harder on participating in service projects, because that may be the only other way that they're engaged with the club. So, you know, and I'm glad that we're getting as many service projects done as we are, given the challenge, because it's helped engage some of the members. I don't know. I would expect that Jim has the data in terms of membership numbers. I'm sure that there are people that left Rotary because of COVID, but I'm hoping that it's not that many that we can't, you know, recover and go forward. You know, but it's just a whole new world. Well, is there sorry.
Have we lost any Rotarians to COVID that you know of?
I think we did, but I don't know the details. And if we did, it wasn't too many, maybe a couple. Sunny would know, definitely. Yeah. But I know, you know, certainly we're family members and yeah.
We have too long a list of people that we lost in Santa Fe. It wasn't to COVID, but just some of our older members that have passed.
How is the pancake breakfast event going virtual? How is that working?
I haven't been on those committee meetings. They did decide to not do it again this year. And they're talking about a kind of an interesting concept of selling pancake mix that's Rotary branded with sponsors listed on the mix, and together with fresh fruit or something like that. Last I heard, it wasn't actually as a fundraiser, it was as a, I mean, the sponsors will help pay for it, but it was mostly as a thank you to the Santa Fe community for their past support of Pancakes in the Plaza, and that we'll be back next year or something like that. So, Kiwanis Club, which does the zozobra every year, did have a burning of the zozobra this year, and invited people to it, but it was mostly online. There were a few special people like first responders and things that were invited to attend it in person, socially distanced, etc. I don't know how well that went off, but it was a good way to do it under the circumstances.
Well, I think that's another area where clubs are going to need help, is what's happening with their fundraisers. You know, our governor's ball had to go virtual, so they're changing that more to like an auction, like the district auction that Linda Woodward kind of organized. So I think a lot of clubs who rely on those fundraisers are going to need some help making adjustments so that they can do something virtually and still kind of brand the event.
Los Alamos has a crab fest every year, and they did it again this year. And normally there's a couple hundred people that attend up in Los Alamos, but it was virtual, and they did have crab, and you could go pick it up. I found the crab terrible. So, being a New Englander,
Away from the coast.
exactly. But so Deborah and I weren't interested in going and picking up our crab. We felt bad, but I said we couldn't make it. Can you donate it? It turned out a lot of people were just having them donated to first responders. So we wanted to support it, so we paid for our crab dinner. But and then they also had an online auction. I haven't heard yet the results, but we'll see. I'll be surprised if they make as much money as they have in the past, but hopefully they were successful.
So I'm curious, Marcia, you are, I'm sorry, it's Marcy, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. I got that wrong the last time. But so you are one of those that you're an assistant governor of a club that you're a member of, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And how is that? Is it easy to kind of build a relationship with the club president, even though you have kind of a district role with that same club?
Oh yeah, it is easy because I already knew him and I've known him for years, and I know all the boards. So there isn't any of this animosity about having the AG attend the board meeting. They know me. I was on the board for a solid 8 years before I became an AG. So and I've been able to be a good resource for them too. And then similarly, Debbie Cox is the lieutenant governor for her home team, I guess, home club in Angel Fire. So I wasn't, like I said, they didn't even start meeting until the fall. And I just recently was able to join them for the very first time. And, but I feel like, well, that's been her club. So she's kind of been, kicking them along, getting them to get going on the Zoom meetings and so on. And then Las Vegas, I haven't been able to visit because unfortunately their club meetings are at the same time I'm working. So I'm going to have to try and arrange something soon to sort of check in on them.
Maybe attend their board meetings.
You know what? They don't have an official board meeting in Las Vegas. When the board meets, it's usually like, we're going to meet 15 minutes ahead of the weekly meeting and maybe go over something briefly. But, contrasted with, say, Taos, whose board meetings generally last 1.5 to 2 hours.
How's Yale doing?
Once a month. I'm sorry?
How's Yale doing?
Oh, Yale's doing great.
Oh, good. Please tell him I said hi.
I will. Yeah. No, he's great. And he took over my role as foundation with the Taos Club. So I was grateful for that.
I play an informal role as AG for my club, Jeff, because for a long time, Steve, the prior AG, was just AWOL. And I knew it. I mean, I knew he wasn't attending any of our club meetings. So whenever I'd have something to say to the clubs I am responsible for, I would reach out to our club as well. And I still do that. It's just, it's easy.
Yeah, it's
receptive to it.
There will come a time when we will have a strong bench of people ready to step in and serve effectively in their roles. We're not just, saying, well, please serve, we need someone for this area. We're so spread out that it is very challenging. And again, I think these virtual meetings makes it a little bit easier for, let's say, an assistant governor that's not anywhere near their clubs to participate, but it's been tough. Yeah. So, all right, well, we're going to reconvene in a couple of minutes. I'm going to go ahead back to the main room because that's easier for me to close out from there. So we'll see you in a few.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we back on, Jeff?
We're coming back. Yep.
Okay, okay.
Hi, Veronica.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm back.
I'm fine. I haven't seen you in so long. It's so good to see you.
Great to see you.
Okay, we're all back together. And again, thank you for the time. Hope it was constructive, but I'm sure there'll be additional discussions after today. So before we break for lunch, we're going to have a presentation from Bob, kind of a Q&A session, and Sunny as well, and including DEI, which we've already talked about some. So Bob and Sunny.
Sunny, did you want to lead off on this one?
Sure. So this is a wrap up of the morning and maybe just a little bit more of a dive into DEI. Michelle, you're still with us, right? She was a minute ago.
There she is.
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
as Dan Garrison had observed, I will confess now, I am taking down my Victorian pandemic Christmas tree, which is a live plant. So no, it's not a fire hazard. And that is why I was away, but I'm back.
Okay.
Likely story.
So Michelle, I would appreciate your diving in on this one, since you may even be more up to date than I am on DEI. What I will say just to kick this off, and we do want your questions on any topic we've been covering. Districts are doing different things to address this issue of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The idea is that while we've never been partisan, we're not a political organization or a religious organization, we have nonetheless often been what I would say is oblivious to how people are experiencing us and to whether they all feel welcome. And I know that every community is different, and that some communities, when they're praying to Jesus, it's representative of their community and that everyone feels welcome. There may be some situations where a more non-sectarian approach or a way of rotating the kinds of invocations we have would be a better option, but we hardly ever even look at ourselves to ask what it is like for people who aren't yet members, but who come and would like to be members. So obliviousness is one thing. And what that would mean for us is simply doing a little self-assessing, just having a little conversation about what our practices are and how they land with everyone. The other thing that I think we'll want to do eventually is work on communication skills, as Michelle was saying before. And my sense from our district is that those conversations probably want to start small. They want to start one-on-one or club or within a club, not from some dictation from the district. But that's, I think, to be invented. And for that, we will want to have a larger group involved in the creation. Michelle, what would you like to add to this?
I thought we would talk
And
about
I think,
Hold on a sec.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
What I actually watched in the last couple of days, which is the link that I sent you during our break, is a very interesting engagement between members of our Rotary community regarding inclusion. They were all African American, and they all talked about their experiences in Rotary and how it felt. And I think that sometimes just expressing how we feel is what's critical. And I know that even in my own club, there have been members of my club that feel, as you say, Sunny, very kind of left out in the prayer process, which is why I personally do the "Oh Great Spirit" sort of prayer without an amen at the end. But my friend Bill always does a moment of silence because he believes that that's truly universal. And I think we have to figure out a way to have that conversation. And I think that one subject would be a great way for us to start engaging these sort of subjects, maybe by making some discussion panels here in Zoom for the whole district.
Thank you. That's really profound. If we would only allow ourselves to share how we feel, all of us, and have, Louis Gentet talks about having in place practices and protocols within the club regarding decision-making, because that's where people will or will not feel heard. And sometimes we skip over that part. We don't make a point of letting everyone say what's so for them. So those are initial steps that I think will go a long way. Does anyone else want to say something about this initiative, this issue, or where you see that we want to be focusing?
Sunny, I have a question.
Yes.
I've seen two different approaches to this, and I don't know if Rotary is recommending one versus the other. One is keep the polarizing stuff out, if you will. And the other is let it in, but make sure that all sides are represented, participatory. And so if for example, you have someone running from office who speaks, then you have the opponent speak. So I've seen one line where just don't go there. And I've seen the other, it's you can go there, but make sure that all points of view are heard, all different perspectives. Has Rotary kind of clarified if both are reasonable or one versus the other?
That's a great question, Jeff. I have not heard a directive on that issue. And I will say, the ones who say, let's not go there, let's have nothing partisan at all, are probably playing it safe, and I'm not sure it's going to work in the long run. And one of the reasons I say that is that we don't all know what's going to be a trigger for someone. For example, my club had a speaker talking about changes in the studies of the ice layer that showed that CO2 was rising. And there were people in my club who thought that was a political issue and should not have been addressed. So I think ultimately we're going to have more success, I'm talking long run now, if we simply foster communication among different points of view. If we let everyone feel heard,
Some clubs, instead of saying none or some, do things like sponsor a forum of candidates.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Because inviting them to meetings, to separate meetings or whatever, you end up with the possibility of one not coming or, something getting in the way. And by sponsoring a public forum,
right,
you're doing a community service by sponsoring the forum, but the issues are not attached to the Rotary Club.
Thank you, Dan. That's an excellent point. It's a good way to go. And we don't know what's going to strike someone as a political issue. For example, when you talk at the zone level and above with people who are talking about this issue, often the people who are speaking will put in the line next to their name the pronouns they wish to be called by. Have you noticed that? They'll say her, she, her, as though we were wondering. And actually, that's a very inclusive thing to do because it makes it safe for people to self-identify. And we never know who otherwise wouldn't be feeling safe. So we have a lot to learn, and it's gonna be, I have to say, it's going to be uncomfortable sometimes because change always is. You know, anything that's different than the way we've always done it is uncomfortable. It's going to be a real advantage to us and to Rotary and to the world for us to take this on.
You know, in one of the foundation videos, a Rotarian talks about what he's talking about, the essence of Rotary. And he ends with, it's the vision to see, the faith to believe, and the courage to act. And we're going to need all three to deal with this. We really are.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really nice. Thank you, Jen. I like your comment. Anyone else? Who else?
Well, I mean, I had an issue at my club on a sexuality issue. And some of my newest members were quite offended by it. So I had to take it offline with the person who kept bringing it up in a couple of meetings. I think things are smoothed over now.
Yes. Well, you know, I appreciate your saying that because if we're really fostering communication, there'll be times when people feel offended. And so we can gain a lot if we train ourselves in communicating in a way that is safe, that is not criticizing someone else, it's sharing your own feelings, and it's being respectful and listening when other people are speaking. Man, this is stuff that we should have been taught in grade school, actually. You know, just
it's not easy.
Well, I personally am of the view that learning effective communication is a lifelong journey. We always can get better at it. And we're going to be called on to do that. Thank you, John.
Hey, Sonny, I have a question or how would you, so spiritually and faithfully, you know, a lot of clubs like to start out with a prayer, maybe a Christian prayer or whatever. And I think it's great to include all faiths, but not all of our clubs have all faiths, and we don't know what people's beliefs are. So how would you address that, or how should we address that?
Well, thank you, Ron. That's a really great question. I'll take my stab at it, and anyone else is welcome to chime in. There are two facets to this. One is in some of our clubs, they're small clubs and they're in small communities, and the communities are fairly homogenous. You know, we aren't going to change that culture, nor should we necessarily place our emphasis there. If they're making everyone in the community feel at home, then we should let them do what they're doing, you know. Where the conversation can be useful is in inviting people to consider who in our community might be feeling excluded by that, and what are some of the ways we might make it a more welcoming environment. And one of the things that's been popular, well, Michelle mentioned, or Dan, I guess, moments of silence can be good. Simply rotating the kinds of invocations, you know, make sure that you have like 6 or 7 different cultures represented by an invocation every 2 or 3 months. Do you know, it's not bad for everyone to realize that we're a part of a larger world and that we can welcome and embrace and learn from other cultures. Am I making sense? Does this seem like a useful way to go?
If you look, if you look up Rotary invocations, there's a ton of them there that are, you know, are fairly generic and not necessarily Christian, or they're just
right.
You know,
they're human. Yeah.
So
right.
if you look up that one.
Yeah, that's what we've started using.
Most of the prayers we give work if you leave out "in Christ's name," because
yes,
the expression of faith is pretty much across the larger world. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's basically makes
You
it,
have to be really careful
That's
with that. though.
frequently.
You do, you have to
I'm
be really
sorry, Nikki.
careful. Yeah, you have to be really careful with that too. When I was president of the Rio Grande Rotary, we had that discussion trying to decide if we make it a little more generic for that reason, because there's multiple faiths in there. And we actually had a member quit because we weren't going to use Christ's name every time.
Wow.
So there's
we had
always
an
going to
assistant
be,
governor quit one year because a Navajo medicine man gave the invocation at a district conference.
Really?
So then
Yes.
that takes us back to the question of how do we introduce the concept of tolerance in a way that
Yeah.
helps them to understand the other side enough that everyone is being included in the conversation.
Yes.
And that might require a mediating voice, somebody like Jeff Weinrack or Dick Jones, who is a very even in the way they present a concept, and have them mediating the conversation.
and that might work for the general club. I think it would work for the general club, that you're always going to have that one person who will not see both sides.
And
And
Nikki
you have to be
is right.
prepared for that.
Nikki, you're absolutely right. And in fact, that we lost people when women were allowed into Rotary because some people couldn't abide that change. I think in general, if we stay true to what Rotary stands for, the right people will select themselves to be in Rotary. And the ones who don't feel aligned with that will find another place to play. And we need to have all of that be okay. But that means in the process, tolerating the absolute different point of view and seeing if we can find a way to include it. Am I
Yes.
So
making
yeah,
sense?
just
That's,
the
uh,
Rotary
well said,
yes
Sonny.
tells
Yeah.
you that. You know, yeah, we're
Yeah, we-
inclusive.
Dan, I'm sorry, we didn't catch what you said.
Well, we don't want to throw anyone away, but at the same time, it's a volunteer organization and someone is allowed to choose not to be there.
That's true.
And we're not going to invite anybody to leave. They're going to, like Sonny said, they're going to selectively opt out themselves because they don't feel like we represent their beliefs. And that's okay. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
We can't be everything to everybody. And, or we aren't anything to anybody.
Yes.
But I don't think we should bend over backwards to retain one person who's way away from the rest of everybody's accepted beliefs.
Yeah, it's so subtle. It's so subtle, the changes we're being invited to make. I know that for years I've encountered resistance to calling a Christmas party a holiday party. You know, such a simple thing. And yet some people are mightily offended by that. So we just keep on making the invitation and nudging people in the direction that we know Rotary stands for, and being tolerant, being kind. I think
Sonia,
maybe
I
we
don't-
can move to, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, I don't see a problem in clubs if they have a Christian prayer, a Jewish prayer, a Navajo prayer, as long as they're doing those on a regular basis. I don't see a problem with
Right.
that. Do you see any problem doing that?
None whatsoever.
That's
None
what our club has
whatsoever.
done for a long time, is we rotated it. And we have Jewish prayers and Christian prayers and Catholic prayers and ecumenical prayers and and you know, you never know if there's somebody in the club that is agnostic or just doesn't want to have that kind of experience, but it's never come up. And if it does come up, I don't know, you deal with it.
Yeah, I can make a statement there too, Bob. We're just doing the same thing. We're rotating them, and knock on wood, you know, not one comment's good or not good has come up. So must be working.
So question, and this goes a little bit to what Linda put in the chat. Is it your sense from Rotary International standpoint that DEI is something that we should be aware of. We should be cognizant. We should be sensitive, but it's not a mandated, assertive something that we in district leadership are going to be sharing with clubs. What's the?
No. Thank you. I think that's a great question. We definitely all want to be sensitive and aware, and it is now, I don't know, mandate's a strong word since there are no Rotary police, but it is definitely a request, an invitation, an urging from RI that we make this question available to the clubs and encourage them to be doing the kind of self-assessment and in even experimenting with the kinds of changes that will bring about a more inclusive and more equitable and more diverse Rotary experience. We have a lot we can do there. And there will be a lot of resources along the way. Right now we have the Rotary, our DEI statement on our district website. It's also on the rotary.org website. And there's a whole set of links to resources to start with. And we'll be making more available as we go. And Michelle, thank you for sending out the link to that. I'm looking forward to hearing what Bowtie had to say.
Jen has a question.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I think it's not our role to tell the clubs what to do. I think that's kind of the opposite of the spirit. Like that's excluding the club's view if we tell them what to do.
Exactly.
So I see our role as acting as consultants. Like maybe a club never even thought about it. Like maybe you talk to the president and you're like, hey, do you know if everybody, like you do a Christian invocation, do you know if everybody's Christian? Maybe talk to your club members. You might find out you've got some different views, or they might come back and say, yep, we're all Christian, we like it, we want to keep it. But just to have a discussion internally.
Yeah, exactly. And what else are you doing that makes everyone feel included and a part of it?
Yes, and it's not just Christian versus non-Christian invocations. It's the whole DEI thing encompasses race and
yes,
and beyond, you know.
Personal philosophies, personal commitments, you know. We can still return to the things that we have in common, but we don't want to just shut people out for all the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you've taken that course too, it's really an eye-opener to think that maybe we don't see some traits that are not Rotary centered in ourselves because of our heritage, of where we were raised, how we were raised. And it's an eye-opener. You know, you need to think about those things.
It is, you know, I'm still a novice at this. The whole issue of structural inequality and systematic racism seems invisible to me. When I took the privilege bingo game, I think I scored really high on privilege, except for not being tall and not being male. But I remember when I read in White Fragility, for example, that, you know, there are things that are in place that we don't think about that are really unique to the white Anglo experience. It's interesting, for example, that we have a Black History Month, but we don't have a White History Month. You know, so the implication is that white is the standard and Black needs to be called out and treated specially. And I don't know, we don't want to get into this now, but I do want to leave us in an inquiry, you know, that it's really, it's not that we have to have all the answers. We want to be living in the question. You know, what is it that will have us be the kind of people we say we are as Rotarians? And actually, this is supposed to be a time to ask other questions too. So don't feel you, go ahead.
One other thing to consider, you know, one of the roles for us is to help clubs if they, let's say, need to do a membership survey. Haven't done one in a while to kind of find out how the club is feeling about things. And if clubs are going to do surveys, getting demographic information about the membership is really important. because we're not monolithic. So do the men in the club feel differently about something than the women in the club do? And what about age? And what about faith? So I think the whole notion of the club member survey is another vehicle to kind of reinforce or verify that diversity was considered, because we're not all the same. And where we are different, that really should be a strength of a Rotary Club. The diversity is a strength. So if you're doing a good job analyzing that survey, you acknowledge that there are differences and you figure out, well, how can we optimize the fact that we have it rather than try to cater to one group or another?
Yes.
Are there any other questions before we break for lunch?
Yeah, what's for lunch, Jeff?
Zoom on
I
toast.
just have one question. I'd like to know if this conversation was useful for people.
Absolutely. Yes, very much.
I think it's very necessary. It was a very necessary question, and I think we all need to look at it in our own, it's all how you treat people. We all humans, and we have to treat each other as a human being, not, I respect everybody. Doesn't matter what faith, what religion, what color, what creed they are, I respect everybody. And I think that's a question each one of us have to ask of ourselves.
Yes.
And
then drill down into what that actually looks like and what it means. And are we instinctivly acting that way, or are we forgetting something in the process?
How we act when we say, I treat people and I like a human being. Do we really act it and stuff like that?
Yes.
It
all comes down to love, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're asking other people to change, are we willing to change?
Exactly.
Yes.
You
So
know.
I want to
I
leave
think
you with one.
sometimes-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think sometimes the thing that kind of bothered me as I was coming up through the ranks to be governor was always the labels. Why do we have to label each other so much? And I say that because I'm a short woman, and that's what people want to label me as. But then I always kept hearing, when is your district going to get a Hispanic? And I kept thinking, does anybody know what boxes I've checked?
Yeah.
There again, it goes back to labels, because my dad is Slavic, my mother was raised in Spain. So maybe basically you already got one, but they're boiled down to labels. Why can't we just like each other because we're Rotarians?
Right. Are we human beings?
Yeah.
Dan, you're about to
a
say
human Rotarian, a novel concept,
Yeah.
So I almost to introduce the Youth Exchange Talent Show. I was this close to, and I've asked some of you in this group to have stood up for that, and I ended up deleting it because people were uncomfortable with it. We're uncomfortable with me saying from a podium the various types of humans that we are. And I had all of the items you could think of: political, cultural, skin color. I had it all listed, and I had almost everybody in the district. I had somebody for almost every spot. But you know what? Other people were uncomfortable with us acknowledging our humanity. So it's a conversation we should have about whether or not that exercise.
Wow, that's very interesting. Dan, were you about to say something?
No.
Okay. I have one quote I want to leave you with, because I think it really kind of says, oh dear, how can I say this? you know, if love is a function of communication, then communicating is what it's all about, right? So remember that, how can I say this? Remember that the biggest single problem with communication, according to George Bernard Shaw, is the illusion that it has taken place. So the fact that you say something and you mean something to be heard doesn't mean it happened. And it really does make a difference to check and see how the communication is going for the other person. And the thing I want to leave you with is my favorite quote from Alan Alda, who said, active listening, true active listening is the willingness to be changed by whatever the other person says. When we listen that way, miracles happen. I'm done.
Have a nice lunch, everybody.
All right, so we are 15 minutes early, and so we will reconvene at 12:30, everyone, 12:30.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Go ahead and order the green chili stew and I'll be there, okay? Now, we normally get 2 bowls. If you're eating there, then put them in 2 bowls. Okay? They try to be the same, like, what you eating like? Okay, so do you want to buy a to-go one and eat at the office, or what? I have to get back, online at 12:30. Okay, that'll be fine. Bring it home. That'll be fine. Bring it home. Okay, fine.